Okay, so you know the exact feeling, right? You're sitting there in a crowded lecture hall, your professor is up at the whiteboard drawing this massively complex diagram, and look, they are clearly brilliant, they're using all the absolute correct terminology, and yet you are sitting there completely lost. You're just watching the clock, right? Hoping they'll say something, anything, that magically makes the whole concept click. But, well, it doesn't. Then you get home, you type that exact same concept into an AI tool, and literally within 30 seconds, it clicks perfectly. The explanation is simpler, the analogy is way better, and it's pitched exactly at your level. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to dive deep into this exact, incredibly relatable phenomenon.
So, what does this all mean? It brings us to the ultimate question we are exploring today. Is artificial intelligence fundamentally better at explaining things than your actual human professor? Now, we are treating this as a totally impartial, honest investigation. This isn't about attacking educators or taking anything away from their immense expertise. It's really just about understanding the reality of modern learning. This huge contrast, being completely lost in a classroom versus finding instant, 30-second clarity at home with an AI, is something almost every modern student relates to. So, to figure out if AI is actually the superior teacher here, we're going to look at a highly structured, data-driven matchup testing 5 notoriously confusing academic subjects. We had a real student take these 5 concepts, sit through the actual professor's lecture, and then ask AI the exact same question.
Okay, let's dive right into this setup. Section 1, the rules of the game, methodology and scoring. To pit man against machine fairly, we had to evaluate this purely from a student's perspective. The grading was broken down into 4 critical categories, each scored out of 10. First up, clarity. Did the student understand it immediately? Second, depth. Did the explanation go beyond just the surface level? Third, examples. Were the examples concrete, relatable, and actually useful? And finally, retention. Could the student successfully explain the concept to someone else an hour later? It is so important to emphasize here that this isn't some formal academic peer review. This is a practical, honest measure of actual on-the-ground student learning. So, with 5 different subjects being tested and a maximum of 40 points up for grabs in each round, that means there are 200 total points available in this epic head-to-head clash. Let's see who takes the crown.
Moving right along, Section 2, where AI shines, math and economics.
Starting off with the subjects where AI undeniably crushed the competition. First up was economics, specifically supply and demand shifts. Now, this is a foundational concept where multiple variables move simultaneously. It's like a giant puzzle. The professor drew the standard diagrams and explained the shifts, but the pacing was fast and just filled with technical terms. Things like ceteris paribus and elastic flying at you. If you haven't locked those terms in, you get left behind fast. AI, on the other hand, used this brilliant everyday analogy about a coffee shop. It simply explained that when the price of coffee beans rises, your morning coffee costs more. It provided the exact same logical structure, but grounded in daily life, and best of all, the student could read it at their own pace. AI took this round 32 to 25. Then came math, specifically quadratic equations. Now, what's really fascinating here is the exact prompt the student used. They didn't just ask for the math to be solved. They asked, explain how I should decide which one to use when I see a new problem. Asking AI for this specific decision logic is an absolute game changer for students. In the lecture, the professor expertly worked through the step-by-step executions of factoring, completing the square, and using the quadratic formula, but she kind of assumed the student would eventually just figure out when to use each method through sheer practice. ChatGPT, however, completely dominated this round by brilliantly providing a clear decision tree framework first. It explicitly taught the logic of looking at the equation and deciding which path to take before doing the math, essentially filling that crucial why gap left by the professor. AI won this round decisively, 35 to 27. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is, well, you'll see. Section 3, where professors dominate, history and English. The game is far from over. Pivoting to the humanities, we look at the history round, focusing on the causes of the French Revolution. The AI gave a very neat, organized, and essay-ready list of financial, social, and political factors. It was good, but honestly, it was incredibly thin. The professor, conversely, provided a masterful, interconnected narrative. She tied the specific historical events to broader Enlightenment thinking happening all across Europe. She delivered a rich intellectual context that made the complexity manageable and deeply meaningful. That is a level of depth that the AI simply couldn't touch. The professor won this round, 34-30. The English round focused on literary symbolism. AI provided a very clear framework on the difference between describing a symbol and analyzing it, using a static, well-chosen example from The Great Gatsby. Super useful for an essay, right? However, the human professor modeled the interpretive thinking process live in the room, and it was genuinely impressive. She read a passage, paused, took student responses, pushed back on one, and collaboratively built an analytical point right there. This live interpretive disagreement created a dynamic, open learning environment, proving that literary meaning is contested, not settled. AI absolutely cannot replicate this human element. The professor took the English round, 34-31. All right, building a little suspense here. Section 4, the final verdict, the 200-point tally. We've seen AI master rigid structures, and professors completely master nuanced context. Looking at the full breakdown, you can really see the back-and-forth battle. And I actually want to take a special moment to highlight the biology round on DNA replication here, because it was essentially a draw. The AI used a brilliant zipper analogy to explain how DNA unzips and copies. But the professor utilized vital step-by-step molecular diagrams that showed exactly which enzyme did what, connecting it directly to clinical mutations. For a highly visual spatial topic like that, text-based AI just couldn't fully compete with the visual diagrams, allowing the professor to narrowly squeak by 31-30.
And this brings us to the final tally. Out of 200 possible points, AI scored 158, and the professor scored 151. Just a razor-thin final margin. This was absolutely no landslide victory for either side, and I think this beautifully illustrates our core finding. Neither tool is absolutely superior across the board. They are simply different. So, the crucial point is this. Section 5, a winning combination. The goal for a focused learner isn't to declare a permanent winner, but to figure out the absolute most effective way to learn. This cleanly contrasts the distinct domains where each excels. AI absolutely dominates in self-paced clarity. If you need an everyday analogy, if you need the decision logic of a framework, or if you just need something explained at your exact level without rushing, AI is for sure your best bet. But human professors, they have an absolute mastery of depth, historical context, cultural nuance, and live intellectual discussion. If you need to understand the full intellectual landscape of a topic, you absolutely need a human scholar.
Which leads us to the ultimate actionable workflow for you as a student. The smartest learning strategy isn't choosing between them, it's combining them into a definitive playbook. Step 1, you must attend the lecture. Go to absorb that deep context, experience the live human discussion, and get the big picture that only an expert can give you. Step 2, when you inevitably hit a confusing gap, because we all do, use AI afterward to decode those specific roadblocks, get concrete everyday examples, and map out the decision logic at your own pace. By pairing the profound depth of human educators with the customized clarity of artificial intelligence, you literally create an unbeatable learning system. So, to wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with something to really think about. In your own educational journey, which specific subjects have you found human teachers handle far better than AI? And where has AI saved you? Think about how you can test this dual approach strategy the very next time you step into a classroom. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and I'll see you next time.